Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin has promised to scale up production of a new hypersonic missile that hit Ukraine last week. He says Western defence systems aren't able to stop the missile, and no other country has anything like it. It all comes amid warnings of a wider conflict after Ukraine used British and American missiles to hit targets inside Russia. Let's get reaction from military analyst Sean Bell. Good to see you, Sean. President Putin then saying he's got a lot more of these missiles and he is prepared to use them, but they're still not fully formed. They're being tested, aren't they? They're not the real deal at the moment?
Yeah, there's some interesting conversation backwards and forwards, isn't there? The Orishnik missile, it was an experimental missile. The Americans said he's only got a handful of them. Putin's therefore said, no, I've got loads of them. It is a pre-production model that they've got. The question is how many they built. You don't run a production run until you've ironed out the wrinkles. It does appear they may have between 6 and 10 of these missiles. So we might see another one launched again. Going from a test to a production, though, is a whole set of new challenges. You need a whole load of bulk technology. The sanctions are really having an impact there, unless China, of course, helps out with it. The main two issues, though, actually, from a warfighting perspective, are one of which, tactically, how does President Zelensky deal with this new threat? And the second one is the threatening rhetoric from Russia. There's been lots of focus on this 3,100-mile range, basically saying, look, West, most of Europe is within range of this. And I have to remind the viewers here, just, for literally decades, both America and Russia have had thousands of missiles capable of carrying ordnance halfway around the world. There is absolutely nothing new about this. The reason it's happening now is Putin's trying to up the ante, threaten the West, because he's trying to prepare himself for a negotiating position early next year. And the more the West is scared, the more the West just wants the war dealt with. It might well be he gets all sorts of palliatives that are involved, and such as sanctions being lifted, etc. So he's definitely playing to Putin, and danger is it rewards his aggression if the West decides to accede to that.
The footage was the footage of the results of that hypersonic missile. Yeah. How does it move the war forward, do you think? What's the next stage?
One of the challenges, the new weapons are constantly being developed all the time. Ukraine's been doing with their drones have been very effective. This new ballistic missile, Mark 11, 11 times the speed of sound. Putin says it can't be shot down. He said actually the same for a Kinzhal missile only recently, and that has. But one of the reasons is it does present a challenge to Ukraine. So President Zelensky has been appealing to the West for the next version of upgraded air defence systems. He might want an upgraded Patriot system. He might want the THAAD system, if you remember that the Americans deployed that to Israel recently. What that does highlight, though, is a concern from the West. Russia likes to showcase its equipment when it's brand new. The West likes to keep secrets because it knows that if you showcase stuff, people harvest all the information out of it. And a really good example of that, a black programme, is the F-117 Nighthawk, which was the first of the stealthy aircraft. The Americans had a black programme. It was first used out in the Gulf War, but it had been in service for 10 years before that. Here's a picture of it. The Americans had kept it secret so that when it's needed for real, it's a surprise. The West, therefore, does not want to deploy state-of-the-art air defence systems into Ukraine, knowing that China and everybody will learn how they work and work workarounds. So it's a real conundrum here, is that deploying this stuff would provide a short-term palliative for President Zelensky, but could compromise the West's long-term security.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? And another development is happening in the Kursk region of Russia. Talk us through that.
Yes, if you remember back in August, Ukraine mounted an audacious attack into the Kursk region, just up to the top of the map there, an incursion. It's the first time Russia has been invaded since the World War II. It seems to have been the strategy that Ukraine wanted to ease the pressure on its front line by forcing Russian forces to go from the Donetsk region, Luhansk, up to try and push them out. The problem was the Russians largely ignored it. They put a ring around it and said, we'll deal with that later, increase the pressure in the Donbass, and they've been on the front foot ever since. Now, the Russians have actually put about 59,000 troops have moved up to the region up there, plus the reports of 11,000 North Korean troops. And we now understand that the Ukrainians have been pushed out. You'll see the orange area, the bigger area. That's what the Ukrainians originally were. Now that yellowish area is where they are now. They've lost about 40% of the territory. Ukraine always said they were only going to hold it as long as it was militarily appropriate. So the question now is, Are they being squeezed out by the Russians, and in which case they're not holding out well, or have they decided that they've achieved their military objectives because the Russians have had to pivot around? And therefore, the challenge is how do they withdraw gracefully so that they preserve as much their manpower as they can and reinforce the area to the south? The challenge is we just don't know, but it's undoubtedly that the Ukrainian foothold in Russia does appear to be gradually easing.
OK, Sean, for now, many thanks.